Welcome to our first Framework for the Family podcast, where we explore the foundations that help families thrive. I'm Bomani Tyehimba, and I'm joined here by Brian Howard, Zeke Adams, and together we will be diving into meaningful conversations that center around family dynamics, growth, and success. So let's get started. Zeke, take it away.
So my first topic that I wanted to talk on is about marriage.
That's a heavy subject.
Yeah, I think it is. The importance of marriage. What is the dynamics? What does God say about marriage? In an area where I'm starting this, obviously some of my friends know that I was recently divorced about two and a half years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the journey that I went on in trying to understand values, what marriage is about, what were some of the things that went wrong in the marriage, and also understanding what a marriage should be. How the two different roles between females and males play. I looked up some stats. I'm like, man, a friend of mine in Columbus, he recently got divorced, and I looked up, what is it that is causing us to divorce? And in the Christian community, a high number, about 70%. At the age of 30 and up are getting a divorce. And
70%?
70% is very high.
Wow.
This is Christian.
This is Christian.
Wow. Okay.
In the community, in the Christian community, between the ages of 35 and 50, the divorce is being initiated by women. Those are things that was shocking to me. I've talked to therapists, I've talked to pastors, I've talked to a lot of people that have educational backgrounds of why this number is so high. And I really feel that, the community, whether it's the therapists or the pastors, I feel like even in my own journey, like I wasn't really getting the help that I needed. To be able to get a foundation for what was going on and what was going on at real time.
Okay.
How to fix these situations. So when it happened, I went on that journey. I went to marriage counseling groups.
Oh, you still on the journey?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I went to, I talked to pastors. I talked to therapists, 3 different therapists, to understand, man, what is it that causes us to separate, even though we know what God is asking for us in the marriage. So my first topic on that is, what is the purpose of marriage? So, as a minister, Bomani, I think I'm going to ask you that first question. What do you think is the purpose of marriage?
Well, let's first, marriage is a sacred union. It's an institution that's ordained by God. All the way back in Genesis, when God created Adam, and he took Eve, created Eve from his rib.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about that the two shall become one.
Right.
So it's a sacred union between a man and a woman. It's a God-ordained union. And it's something that is very serious, shouldn't be taken lightly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first thing to remember about, that I would say about marriage. It's a sacred union. It's something ordained by God. And it is his plan for the man and woman to come together. Also, it says to be fruitful and to multiply. So God has given some very specific, responsibilities to the man and woman in terms of making a family and what have you. So it's a sacred union first and foremost, and it's ordained by God.
Okay. Mr. Howard, What do you think?
You know, I start off, agreeing with Bomani. I mean, this is a sacred institution. In addition to that, though, there are very real practical concerns that get in the way. We never quite get to the level of seeing marriage as a sacred institution because all these practical worries and concerns that get in the way.
Yeah.
And so, marriage should be a place where you can get support, and not that you have to be married to get this, but there's a certain boundary around marriage. It's not like friends. Friends can support you,
Right,
but a marriage is that next level, or should be, right? Where you can trust this person more than anybody. You can get that kind of unconditional support that you couldn't necessarily get from anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Even in your down moments, they're supporting you because, look, our fate is tied together. Our well-being is tied together. You can't say that about your friends, right? You can't say that about a lot of people. But in a marriage, and if I go off the reservation and go crazy, look, my wife is affected.
Exactly.
Her well-being is tied
Exactly.
to me, or at least that's the way we, I think that God would have created it. And so things like that, I think, kids, man, that's a big one for me.
That is.
There's the stats are endless about when kids aren't in a healthy, functioning family, when they're in single-parent homes. Problems are endless. They just go down off the cliff. So, man, I see on one hand the high ideals, but the pragmatic concerns on the other hand is just they can be overwhelming.
So you just made a statement about single family head of households or family unit. It goes downhill. Now, that's not always the case.
Not always.
I mean, God's perfect will is that a family be made up of a man and a woman, and then children come into the picture. That's His perfect will.
Right.
His permissive will is that He understands that there are going to be times where there may not be that union between a man and a woman, and they bring a child into that union, and for whatever reason, a single parent, typically it's a woman who's raising that child. That's not His perfect will. That's His permissive will, and God can bless both situations.
Yeah. Man
and woman, father and mother, and children in a household, or a mother and a child in a household. So, don't say it's
Wait a minute.
Yes.
I think that's the pastor in you talking. I don't agree with that. I think
you don't agree with. What?
I don't agree with God. Well, I would say this. I don't agree with the whole entire how you was projecting how that it's like it's okay to be a single mother.
Right,
that God is still going to give you some type of grace. I think God holds everyone accountable. I think He holds the mother who is who doesn't understand where her place or where she's at when it comes to identifying her mate. I think it's the man who doesn't know or identify which is the female. Okay. I think what we just talked about is marriage is sacred. I believe marriage is a covenant. Exactly what you said earlier about the rib. God went and He actually took Adam's rib and He made Eve. That was from God. That is sacred. And I think we give so much leeway to not identifying what the purpose of marriage is. When I was with my true story with my counselor, I'm like, I went through this, I went through that. This person was this and this person was that. I mean, and I had some legitimate problems, legitimate. And I went on and on and on and on. At the end of me crying, you know what she told me? She said, "Whose fault is that?"
Whose fault is what?
Everything,
all the stuff that you was talking
everything
about?
I talk about my spouse. Whose fault is that? You chosen.
Whose fault was it?
It was mine.
It's yours.
It was my fault, and as much as I had to swallow that hard pill, I had to look back and say, you know what? There were things that I saw that I overlooked. There was things that I probably could have looked at a little bit more deeper, but I overlooked it.
Like, I don't have the time to deal with this right now.
Yeah. And when it started presenting themselves, marriage, I always say this, in marriage, regardless of the situation, marriage is going to ask for two things. And that is going to be accountability, number one. That's without your spouse. Marriage is going to ask for accountability, and it's also going to ask for honesty, truth. If you can't present yourself to marriage as that, marriage will pick you apart. Marriage is I feel that marriage is in an area where because God ordained it, it's a sacred thing that you can't manipulate marriage. You just can't. No matter how long you go through it or whatnot, if you're not being accountable or responsible, marriage is going to pick you apart. And you see so much of that. And I've been talking to so many people about why they got a divorce. And it's the same story over and over again. It's about two people who lost their way. And we have to understand, first of all, people, just like Brian was saying, the kids, when you say no, yes, the kids, because
No, the kids, what?
The kids go, the kids suffer as well. The kids suffer as well.
We was talking about, he was giving the example of a single family headed household.
But you were acting like
and he just said, it goes as if that is the norm. My point was that you can have a successful family if there is a single parent. So don't poo-poo the single family headed household.
Hang on. I don't.
Let's say this, and I don't want to say that it can never happen. I think there are examples of single parent households who have had some success. What I will say,
many.
Oh, sure,
many.
But I'm saying and this is the way I look at it. I'm not necessarily interested in the fringe case because that's not necessarily something that can be duplicated on a broad scale. What I'm interested in is more the average. And so, on the average, is it true that a single parent household is set up for success? And I would have to say no, not on average.
It's not.
There are some who can find success despite that challenge of not having a full family. But then most, I don't think will. At least not to the level we would want it to be.
You're going to have to give me the statistics on that.
I have to bring it for you. You're right. I have to bring it to you.
Yeah.
But I mean, even ask yourself anecdotally, like you would say most of the single parent households that you know of, they're doing well. Yeah, I don't know that I could say the same anecdotally.
I definitely would disagree. I disagree with that.
Well, you're disagreeable anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to be disagreeable because I think just seeing how my children went through that downward spiral of two parents in a household separating. I don't think you can change God's law. I don't think you can sugarcoat God's law. I don't think you can make God's law into an area where, let's just say, if you're divorced or if you're a single mother, if you decide to have children outside of wedlock, I think there is a blessing inside of the sin. I think
there's a blessing inside of what?
Yeah, a sin is a sin. But I think repentance and asking God, hey, Lord, I made a mistake. Help me to be a better mother, a better father for my children. Help me to be able to get through this storm. I think God relieves the actual
it's more like mercy and
grace.
Yeah.
But the sin is still there.
Right.
The scar is still there. that child has to be raised in a situation where it does not have a father. And there is statistics on that as well, about a father being absent from the home.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's very hard for a mother to raise a son. And then there's a thing called generational curse. I was like, nah. I looked into that. It's true.
What's true?
The generational curse.
Define curse.
Okay. I would say that the curse is not more like you're punished for life, or you're in a situation where you're being whipped or something like that. I would say this.
That's a good topic, and I would like, at some point in time we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Because when you hear someone talk about generational curses, there's an assumption.
It sounds like magic.
Let's
be honest, it does. It doesn't sound like
that. The curse is generational.
No, I believe you.
It's generational. Okay, and when you boil it down, the curse is I am being punished because of something that my father, my grandfather, or someone in my family line did, and I am suffering the consequences of I'm being cursed. So the topic this is gonna be a controversial topic.
Oh yeah, it is.
Because my position is, biblically speaking, there is no generational curses.
Okay. So
we don't want to talk about that right now.
We're not going to talk about it right now. I'll continue.
But that's a topic we're going to talk about.
We're going to dig into that.
And I'm going to refute all of that stuff.
Okay. I want you to.
Yes.
So what I am saying is that it's if a...
in fact, I'll give you a little snippet. There are generational behaviors.
You know what? That's
not
true.
Curses.
That's true.
Behaviors.
I would agree with that. Okay. I think what I was about to say, I think you just nailed it. I think it's because of behavior. It actually contributes to the child's behavior.
Well, let's add this. If we throwing stuff in there, just to muddy the waters.
Yes.
There's more than just behaviors. Like if you study epigenetics, behavioral tendencies can be passed down through your genes. Literally.
Really?
I know.
Epigenetics.
Oh man. Okay.
Look it up. I mean, so if I have the tendency to be a hothead and spout off at the mouth and do this stuff, it doesn't surprise you that my son does the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but there's a literal reason why he could inherit a tendency like that, not just because he's always around me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just to muddy the waters.
Oh, well, I've actually witnessed it. I have a family member who had no connection to their father.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know their father until some years later.
Mm-hmm.
And connected him with his father, for a first meeting. I was there, and I'm watching this guy walk towards the car, and I'm like, wow, my nephew walks just like him.
Mm.
He had the same mannerism, had never met him. So there's some things that, it wasn't that he picked it up by watching him.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It was something that was just in his genetic makeup.
Mm.
Walked the same, similar mannerisms, and they had never met each other. So I would say there's some truth to that.
Yeah. And also too, there are women. The statistics are that when women have raised a child, the son might be able to have a long-term marriage, but the daughter might have problems just like the mother, especially if she's not committed to someone during that child's upbringing. That means that the child is not able to or not know how to treat a man, especially as a Christian, head of household. Certain areas where she might be struggling to figure out, I don't know, this is what I've seen, but I really don't know how to dig deep into the mental health of a man or whatnot. So there are some statistics that show that separation in single women, they have some areas where we're not talking about the generational curse, but the generational behaviors might be producing more in the population of these I won't say negative, but these areas of where they can't be able to function in a relationship. So, in understanding that marriage is important.
Excuse me.
Marriage is sacred.
Yes.
I do feel that, when it comes to marriage, you should know, and I'm teaching this, I'm talking about it. Know who you with, know who you are with. And I know that's easier said than done, but
you gotta slow down.
We have to slow down. Understand that if you're looking at life with a companion, you have to be able to know who that person is. I was with a person for 18 years, and it's like I never knew. Towards the end of the relationship, all of this stuff that was going on mentally, that it caught me off guard. People were like, well, how come you didn't see this coming? I didn't see it.
So it was your fault.
Part of it was my fault.
Okay.
The other, because I chose that person. I should have got to know who that person was, know the mental behavior, know some of the things that they do or they can do under pressure. Marriage is going to bring that. Marriage is going to bring a lot of that stuff out, and people fold up under that. They won't be able to, sometimes they will look for an out instead of fixing the problem. Okay. And that's why the marriages are so high.
You mean the divorces? You said
divorce is so high.
Divorce is so high.
Yeah, divorce is so high. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, that's why divorces are so high. And when you look at talking to different people, it seems like they wear marriage like a glove. If it don't fit, take it off
and find another glove.
And find another glove.
Wow.
It's that simple nowadays.
Yeah.
And there is just so many things that I want to explore in dealing with marriage going forward in this podcast that I want to be able to talk about. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is the responsibility of a marriage. What is the role of a man in the marriage, Bomani?
What is the role of the man?
The role of the man. What is the responsibility? Biblically, what is the responsibility? And I'm going to say this. I'm going to throw this out here. Somebody told me that in today's time, where the economy being all crazy, a man is still supposed to be the breadwinner, and the woman is supposed to be in the house. And that is what a successful marriage is.
Wow.
Wow. The Bible don't even say that.
Wow, you've been listening to us and watching us with Framework on our podcast, our initial podcast, Framework for the Family. And we're going to pick that topic up on our next podcast.
Okay.
So stay tuned. We're going to have some very deep and robust conversations. And so we welcome you to our first podcast, and look for us each week. Same time, same station.